Hello everyone. Today I'm going to make a video on replacing couplers. A lot of models nowadays they still come with plastic knuckle couplers. Kadee is the one that made the knuckle couplers, and they're made out of metal, but many of these companies are putting on plastic ones. They don't quite work as well, and I've also broken one before. So a lot of people swear by Kadee's, and it's good rule of thumb, especially with bigger trains, just to go out and replace all the couplers in your fleet. Overall, most models are a fairly straightforward process. And I'll show you one or two. So for the most part, they're going to have a screw for the coupler box that you're just going to have to remove. And normally to get to that, it helps to unscrew the truck. So we'll start with taking this truck off. And now we'll have to switch out to a smaller Phillips bit and unscrew the coupler box. And then normally you just lift up with coupler, have it come out. Cool. There's one of the plastic ones. I think that's an Accumate or McHenry. So now I'll grab one of these Kadees. I highly recommend just getting the bulk pack. They come in two different sizes. There's kind of a standard size, and then there are also scale size couplers that are a bit smaller, so they're closer to the real thing. And I also use the ones with the whiskers for the self-centering. So there's old ones that have a little brass box you would add in there too, but these have the little metal springs off to the side that centered the coupler, and that just makes it, in my opinion, a lot easier to install. So now we screw the truck back on. And I've already done one on the other side. So now when you're screwing these trucks back on, it's good practice to have one side you want tight enough that freely turns. So normally I just tighten it all the way down and take it off back quarter turn. And then one side of the trucks you want to let it come off a little more so the truck can rock back and forth. So one end it's just going to turn back and forth. The other end you want it to rock slightly, and that way if your track works off, it won't derail. It'll basically stay on track and follow it. Another good thing to do during this time would be take your standards gauge, just check the wheels and everything. Which I think was more of a problem back in the days. Most eye tests I don't have a problem with. And now the important part, especially with using scale couplers, is you want to put it on a track. And check the height of your coupler. So this is a Kadee coupler height gauge. Basically you just put a coupler in there, and it has little feet that it sits on the track with. Put it down, put the coupler up to it, and you want to basically make sure they're the same height. There's only a little variation. If not, Kadee sells different heights on the shanks, which you can look into that. Basically it'll raise or lower the coupler a little bit. Otherwise you'll have to play with the coupler box height. or like put spacers with the trucks. The other important thing to note is this little shelf on the front, and that is for the trip pin. So if your trip pin hangs too low, it can get caught up in grade crossings. So you just want to check that there. If it is low, you can bend it up a little bit with just spare pliers. Some of the older cars, you don't even have a screw. So this one you can see here, that's just a regular box. And basically you would just take the screwdriver and pry that off. I'm not sure how well that works. I haven't run that one a lot with heavy trains. But I do know there's a few companies that make kits to convert that into a screwed in coupler box. And now the Athearn Genesis, they have a few weird ones to make it more prototypical scale. So there's one in particular. This is a Trinity 5161 covered hopper, and these are scale coupler boxes, and they also have these really funky couplers that the coupler doesn't, the knuckle doesn't move, the whole coupler splits apart, which I really hate these things. A Kadee won't fit in this coupler box, so there are directions on the Kadee website of how to install a new coupler box, which I'll have a video of later. And then the other way that couplers are installed, as you can see, this one, there's no screw. The cover is actually on the top of the box. And so what we're going to have to do with this is we're going to have to take the floor off and the frame off to get to it. There's directions in this box, but most models, I would imagine, either you can find online if you can't see it, but you can kind of just look for the seam and tell that it's on top. So this floor is pressed in to fit, and so you just pull the whole thing out. Some of them are a bit stiffer than others. The last car I did actually was a pain. And now we're going to unscrew the trucks. And this lets the frame come off the floor. The only thing you gotta be careful with here is your triple valve. So this is an Athearn box bar. Which one is it? It's a 60-foot Gunderson. And so all the brake piping detail is attached to this frame other than the triple valve right here. That's attached to the floor. I'm just going to lift up on it a little bit and get it to come off so I don't break these airlines. Yeah, so now the whole frame separates off. Can lift the cover to the coupler box off. If it's a little hard, you can use a screwdriver to pry it off. Then we take Kadee, set it in there. The fun part with them is you kind of got to hold them in place because otherwise they tend to want to flip out. Now, one thing once you disassemble this car, which I just did, I want to make sure your trip pin is pointing downwards. which because this is a party, I really can't tell. I just did flip it upside down. So I recommend checking that before you put the whole car back together. So it goes down there. And pop the cover back on. And we'll do the same thing on the air end. As I said, this is a really kind of simple step. Other than one or two cars, you kind of got to figure out how to actually get it, to come apart. Now a lot of older rolling stock had truck mag couplers, and I think even some of the stuff that had knuckle couplers, you have to do a little more work to actually install a coupler box that works with the Kadees. But overall, your newer models, yeah, I'd say that even the blue boxes, for the most part, have knuckle couplers or coupler boxes with hook and horn couplers. It's super easy to change out. Yep, so make sure the trucks both freely rotate, and again you want one to be fairly tight and then the other to be able to rock back and forth, so it's a lot more forgiving with your track work. So yep. And pop triple valve back in. And just push this back down. Make sure you don't get caught up on anything. And that's pretty much it. So now we'll go check it on the coupler height gauge. Yep, and we are good to go. So now the other thing I like to do, your cheaper models and your older models have plastic wheel sets, which is great for shorter trains, but if you want to pull a really long train, it's definitely a lot better to go with metal wheel sets. They just roll so much better. So now, this is an AccuRail model, and unfortunately they don't fit with the couplers on in the box. So we'll reassemble this guy. So we'll take the trucks off. You probably could get away without taking a truck off, but it's just a pain in the butt, so it's easier to take that screw out. And now to replace your wheel sets, all you gotta do is spread the frame apart, pull that wheel set out. And then you have metal wheel sets. There's a lot of different manufacturers. These are Kadees. And the big thing is just make sure it's the same size. So these are 33-inch wheels, which are fairly standard I know some of the newer cars have 36-inch wheels, especially the heavier duty ones. Okay, make sure it spins freely. Again, you can check it with the gauge. And put the coupler in the box. Put the box back on. And we can screw that in. And I'll save you watching me do the other one. You can probably figure out just with the one side. Again, it's very easy. It's just take your box off and take out the coupler and put it back in. Another thing to note with the whisker couplers, you can get the whisker to stick out from under the cover, so just make sure it's nicely sitting in there and that it moves back and forth well. So, alright, if y'all don't mind liking and subscribing, I will have more videos coming out soon. I hope this is of help. So, thank you for watching.